Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the news. My name is Joe and we are live here from the studio this morning. We're going to be looking at Ralf Rangnick getting ignored by his players last night. He's come and spoken about the fact that some of his instructions weren't listened to or weren't adhered to by the team against Young Boys last night. We'll also be looking at Donny Van de Beek, who's claimed responsibility for their goal, I think quite rightly too, as well. We'll also be looking at the latest on Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Both his injury and his form at Manchester United is a big talking point. £50 million, and he's kind of waning in public opinion at the moment. We'll also be taking a look at Erik ten Hag, we've been given the biggest indication yet that Manchester United want to sign Erik ten Hag in the summer. That is coming out of Holland. We will get to that as we go along. But let's start with Ralf Rangnick. Of course, Manchester United drew 1-1 with Young Boys last night. The fixture was largely meaningless for Manchester United, although it did allow us to make a few debuts, full team debuts for Tom Heaton, Zidane Iqbal and Charlie Savage as well, which is great to see. But Rangnick wasn't happy, and you can see why, really. We watched, anyone who watched that game, or anyone who didn't watch the game, you draw 1-1 with Young Boys, and it's not going to be, champagne in the showers afterwards, is it? He's come out and said that some of the United players ignores his instructions, and he has said he's a little bit annoyed. Before we carry on, please like the video, and if you aren't subscribed, subscribe as well. Let's see if we can get to 500 likes on the video. So Ralf Rangnick spoke after the game, and he said, what was really a little bit annoying was the way that we also gave the goal away, because we played too many balls into the first line of their pressing area, and this was also the case with the goal we conceded. We could also have cleared the ball easily, and whenever we played the ball into the second or third line, we were always dangerous. I told them that before the game, but they still played in that situation. The 5-metre pass, and Young Boys were just waiting for the ball. It was more or less a pressing invitation that we sent. He said, I was fully aware before the game that with this team that we played today, we haven't played together as a team, and that first half an hour we did quite okay. But that's the crucial thing there. He's saying, he told them before the game, don't play it short into their pressing invitation or into their pressing area. Play it through the lines, play it into their second or third wave of pressing, and we'll have more success. We didn't do that, or we weren't capable of doing that, or the players didn't understand, or the players didn't care. I don't know whether there's a mixture of things that led to United basically not being able to perform the instructions given to them by Ralf Rangnick. It's obviously a short training period, but you would think that these players, almost all of them to a man last night, except maybe Mason Greenwood, who I think, showed enough first of all to be in that first team conversation, and also has done enough previously to continue to be in that first team conversation. But pretty much everyone else was fighting for a place under Ralf Rangnick. And was fighting to prove that they were good enough to be in, maybe that first team, or even that first sort of, first sub on at 60 minutes, right? Here's my chance for 30 minutes. And it didn't feel as though many of those players did that last night. That would be the one disappointing thing. Donny Van de Beek, an obvious one. Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw, another couple of obvious ones. Again, maybe Shaw is in a slightly different category because of his attacking and on-the-ball abilities that we saw last season. But Wan-Bissaka's another one we will get to in just a moment, that didn't really excel last night. And when you got the manager coming out and saying, I told them before the game, but they still did it anyway, I told him not to do it, and they still did it, it's hardly a glowing endorsement from the manager. Like I said, I was a little bit annoyed that I told them to do this one thing, and they've done something else. Obviously, it's not a huge problem. It's not a huge deal. A lot of these players wouldn't expect to be in that first-team conversation week in, week out. But when your manager's coming out in only his second game in charge and saying, I told them to do it, and they didn't do it. At that point, he's pointing the finger at those players, isn't he? And you have to understand that if you're one of those players who has just been basically publicly told off, your chances of, getting rid of Fred in that first team, or getting rid of, Rashford, or getting rid of Telles in that first team has probably just gone down when you consider he's not happy with your performance. Let me know your thoughts on the performance last night. Obviously, the game as a whole, the result, irrelevant, but I think the performance would have been nice to maybe see a little bit more from some of those players, and especially some of those players who are right on that fringe. You look at Van de Beek, you look at Wan-Bissaka, you look at Telles, you look at some of these players who, if they'd had a really good game, you could see them starting at the weekend against Norwich, but seemingly that is less likely now than it was before. Kong Guan says Greenwood is the only promising youth we have. And Peter Holland said Mengi did well. Mengi did do well, but he came on, what was it, after 65 minutes or so. So I don't know if you can sort of lump him in with everything else that was done there. I thought Dean Henderson had a decent game as well. And again, obviously he's not been tasked with breaking that press, playing those 10-yard, 20-yard passes. But it wasn't exactly a shining night for Manchester United last night. And continuing on from that, we'll move on. But it's continuing on. We'll talk a little bit about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who of course played last night. And it's been a bit of a tough few weeks for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. The final few weeks under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer were very poor for him, giving the ball away a lot, looking very poor on the ball, not at some of the heights that we saw last season, where he did seem to finally get that blend of brilliantly one-on-one defensively. Maybe his defensive positioning lacks a little bit of finesse, but then also was getting the assist. He got 6 assists last season, which he's not. It's hardly Thierry Henry in 2001 or whatever it was, where he got 20 assists. But for a fullback, if you can get 6 assists every season, you are more than pulling your weight. But now this new system with an emphasis on quick build-up, winning the ball back, then passing the ball in tight spaces, his build-up play is leaving a lot to be desired. He was also injured after the game yesterday. Rangnick spoke about the injury. He said Aaron got 2 knocks again, one on the wrist and the other one on the knee. So we'll have to see how this will develop by Saturday. He was stretchered off the pitch for anyone who didn't see that. Basically, he was injured at the full-time whistle. Everyone's clapping and waving to the fans and everything, and he's been stretchered off the pitch. So seemingly a relatively serious injury, although there was no report that he's gone to hospital or straight anywhere with a broken anything, fractured. I don't think there's anything of that nature. But obviously, injured and out of favour at the moment. And you look on Twitter, you look across social media, the Aaron Wan-Bissaka train has very much pulled into the station at the moment. There doesn't seem to be much momentum on that train whatsoever. And I think some of it is slightly unfair and some of it is slightly throwing the baby out with the bathwater with these things, because as decent as Delos's been, I don't think he's been so good that you have to say Wan-Bissaka's out. But then you can't help but understand the argument. Wan-Bissaka doesn't progress the ball very well. He isn't very good at receiving possession in tight spaces, and you need to do that if you are playing this incredibly close system that United are going to be playing under Rangnick, where between your attack and defence there's about 30 yards. That means that every interaction you have, there are more players close to you, because just by the very nature of how tight you're playing. And if you're poor on the ball, if your first touch is bad, if your short passing is bad, you will stand out immediately as someone that is struggling in that system. And I think that's the concern with Wan-Bissaka. But again, if you put Wan-Bissaka into Twitter this morning, you'll find nothing but £50 million wasted, as though he hasn't done good things in the last 2 years, first of all. But also, looking forward, his skill set doesn't necessarily suit the way that Rangnick wants to play, and that is a big concern. And obviously now another concern for him physically is he seems to be injured. And Rio Ferdinand was speaking about this last night. He was saying he must be talking about Wan-Bissaka, he must be thinking, right now, how am I going to be able to enable myself to be able to execute in those situations? That comes with repetition on the training ground and working on the pitch and coaches. That's talking about playing in those tight spaces. He also said, nowadays the players who are getting the most touches are fullbacks, so you have to be good at receiving the ball and playing it over various distances and adding different layers to your game. In Wan-Bissaka, if you're talking about one of the top right-backs in the country, that's where he falls short. That playing the ball various distances, receiving the ball in tight spaces, and being one of those players that is going to build up play. I think, Maram's been in, and if you haven't seen a video with Steve, make sure you check it out. But Maram, who does a lot of data visualization, we've been chatting over the past couple of months, and one of the key things she consistently builds up on the other side or talks about is Luke Shaw's build-up, and how much we over-relied on that in the past because Wan-Bissaka's build-up isn't good enough on that side. And you think you can't have this lopsided attack all the time, especially when you're playing a system that focuses on winning the ball back and then immediately being able to start counterattacks. You can't plan where you're going to win the ball back. You can't always push the play over to Luke Shaw's side so that when we win it back, he can make a short pass. Sometimes you have to win the ball back on the right-hand side, or a lot of the time, or half the time, you're winning the ball back on that side. And if Wan-Bissaka is incapable of continuing that and winning the ball back and then continuing it and starting those passages of play, it's going to be difficult for him. Although I do feel sorry for him, obviously, that injury's come at this time, because this is the time when he can prove himself and improve as a player. Jamie Usher with a super chat said, saw an awful lot of people saying that Donny was awful. I disagree. Whenever he's given a game with the first team, like with Watford, he plays fantastic, but when he plays with the second string, he doesn't seem to shine. It's an interesting take. We'll be talking a bit more about Donny in just a moment because obviously he did basically give the ball. I say basically, he gave the ball away for their goal last night, and he's taken responsibility for that. Anish says, I think Ahmad was the star performer. He looked superb on the ball. I think he may have created 2 big chances. And Marcelino says Matic was more at fault for the goal. I think I would give Matic a bit of blame as well. I think he was the one that passed the ball into Donny, wasn't he? But Donny just basically plays a flick around the corner without looking what he's doing. You can't. Yes, Matic has put him in a difficult position, but if he wanted to, he could have given it back to Matic. He could have given it to the goalkeeper. He could have just booted it. Obviously, that's not ideal in any scenario, but you can't just give the ball away because someone gave you a bit of a tricky pass. Let's move on to Donny then, because obviously we're talking about him anyway. He spoke after the game and basically held his hands up for the goal. He said, I think the first 30 minutes was okay. We scored a good goal through Mason, and after that, we have a few chances to make it 2 or 3-0, but we didn't do that. If we did that, it would have been much easier. And then at 1-1, for me, I lost the ball in the middle. Maybe I should kick the ball away. I didn't do that, and I take my responsibility for that. He said after that, it was a bit difficult. We didn't get enough pressure on them and we lost too many balls. It's really difficult to come into the game, but a few players played their first game in the Champions League, which was really special for them. It was really special for them. We've mentioned that previously. But again, Donny's taking responsibility for the goal. I don't think just because you're a fan of Donny Van de Beek that you have to, therefore defend every action he makes. He's still allowed to give the ball away. You can still be his fault that we conceded a goal just because you like him, just because you think he should be playing over McTominay or Fred or whoever, or Bruno. Doesn't mean he can never make a mistake. And he did make a mistake. And I think it's fair enough and it's good of him to hold his hands up. Donny wasn't played in his ideal post in any way. Again, maybe he wasn't, but you look at the versatility of players in the team. Bruno's playing as a wide number 10 now. Sancho was played as a left winger, a right winger. Now he's dropping into that sort of wide number 10 role. Fred's moved about all over the place. He was playing as a 6. He was playing as an 8. Bruno's, Rashford's plays as a striker on the left wing, the right wing. You have to be versatile. You can't say, well, it's fine that Donny gave the ball away because he wasn't playing where he wanted to play anyway. It's not his team. He is being told to play in a position, and he has to be able to be slightly more versatile than that. And that's fine. But at the same time, if he makes a mistake, I think, it's fair enough that you say, Donny gave the ball away there, didn't he? Yes, he did. Apparently, Wan-Bissaka was terrible. Okay, put him in the goalkeeper position. There's versatile, and then there's obscene. Come on, we all like to have a laugh here, but you know what I mean. When I say versatile, there's 2 or 3 positions a lot of players can play. Luke Shaw's played as a left centre-back in a 3 at the back. He's played as a left, regular left full-back. He's also played as a left wing-back. That's versatility without having to say, let him be manager for a game. But yeah, Donny Van de Beek, not his best performance. And I do agree with you with what the comment said before about he's better when he plays with the first team, but that's the case for everyone, isn't it? You play with better players, you look better because you can rely on them more. The passes to you are probably more accurate and with better timing. But at the same time, if you're playing, you need to try and stand out in every game you play, which I don't think is unfair to say. Let's move on then to an interesting story. I mean, another link to Erik ten Hag, but this time from arguably the most reliable source in the Netherlands. And this is the Telegraph, and they have said Man United and Man City's interested in Erik ten Hag after, their 100% score of the steamroller, which is essentially they won all 6 of their Champions League group games. Only the 7th ever team at the time they did it to do that. The first Dutch team, I believe, as well. Incredibly impressive start in both the league and in the Champions League. Erik ten Hag really sort of hitting his stride with that team at the moment, and they're saying that Manchester United are interested in signing him in the summer. Man City is another one, but the rumour there is, or the problem with that is, Guardiola will probably not be leaving this summer. So if he wants to go to Manchester City, he's going to have to wait another year, whereas United, that option is probably available this summer. Obviously, Ralf Rangnick has already spoken in his first press conference and said, who knows, I might recommend myself for the job next year. I'm an advisor after all, and I'm advising you to hire me for 12 million quid a year. And he might do that. And, and I'm sure if he wins an FA Cup and finishes top 4 or gets to a Champions League semi-final and, finishes top 4, there'll be a lot of clamouring, and probably rightly so, for Rangnick to stay on. But as it stands, he is the interim manager. And therefore, United need to be looking at who the next permanent manager will be. And Telegraph are reporting, not the Telegraph in England, Telegraph in Holland, which is a different publication and is equally reliable, tier 1 reliable. They are saying that Manchester United are interested in Erik ten Hag, which is, again, just further confirmation, if we needed it, that United do have their eyes on the Dutchman, which I think is excellent. I think it's a great potential appointment. He seems to have... There's a more sort of inspiring optimism about Ten Hag to me than Poch, who seems to be the other front runner when you look at, all the rumours and reports of who United are interested in. It's Poch or Ten Hag. They seem to be the two big options, with sort of Rangnick there as well, if he does well. But we've seen Poch in the Premier League, and yes, he does well and he improves teams and he's a decent tactician and he seems quite likeable, all good qualities. He seems to lack that killer instinct, that we're going to win at all costs instinct. Whereas Ten Hag, obviously, he's only done it in Ajax. So there's your sort of immediate, problem with him if you want to find one. But he takes his teams and he wins things with them, even if it's only domestically. He's got that sort of killer instinct and he's got a lot more potential maybe than Pochettino. And it's great that we're still being linked with him, and again, linked by basically the most reliable outlet in the Netherlands. Alex Bailey has been a member for 13 months. Thank you very much. I'll read your super chat in just a second, but if you aren't a member, make sure you become one. You click the join button, you get extra videos, extra content, and you also get added to every single one of our 12 Days of Paddock giveaway coming on the 26th of December. If you are a member on the 26th of December, you will get entered to win every single one of our prizes. We've got books, we've got merch, we've got posters, we've got Manscaped packages, we've got a Sony PlayStation 5 to give away. So click the join button and you will automatically be entered for all of them worldwide, wherever you are. If you win the PlayStation, we will send it you, and one of our members will win it. You also get extra stuff, like I said, extra content, access to the members-only Facebook group, and discounts on the merch. So click the join button, help the channel out as well, and also be entered for all of those prizes. Alex says, for me, this proves Wan-Bissaka needs to improve lots on the ball. And also, Mata is pretty much done and needs to retire with a great career behind him. The Mata thing is interesting, isn't it? He doesn't seem, this is the second season in a row now where he's basically been, a third, fourth string player. He's not even getting substitute appearances, generally speaking, unless the game is a complete dead rubber like we saw yesterday. It's a shame for him, obviously, because whilst 33 is getting on a bit, he's not that old. He's 3 years younger than Ronaldo. And, whilst Ronaldo's one of the, peak physical specimens in the world and one of the best players ever, there's a time when Juan Mata was in the sort of top 10 in the world conversation back in 2012. I think he got 18 goals and 35 assists. Like, this isn't a player that was decent and is aged poorly. He's only 33 and, maybe he could still have a career somewhere else. But, yeah, Juan Mata does seem to have played, one of his final games for Manchester United, as much as we all love him. Right, that's going to be all from me this morning. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We're on 621,000 subscribers. We're trying to get to 700,000 by the end of the season. If you watch us, you like us, just hit the subscribe button and you'll get all of our videos as soon as they come out. Thank you for joining me this morning. We've got another video coming out with Abdul this afternoon, looking at exactly what happened last night, analysing some of the players, analysing some of those debutants, and we can, basically give our verdict on what we saw yesterday under Ralf Rangnick with his second game. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been the news. We'll see you in a bit.